Right, so now it's saying because I got my well, I haven't used it on YouTube before, but I also put the shows on my YouTube as well.
Ah,
Coughing,
saying
coughing.
we're streaming live on YouTube right now.
I don't know yet. It's loading. It's doing the same thing it did with Facebook. Like I say, I'm going to give this one go. If this doesn't work, give us 2 seconds and we'll set up. No, this is looking. We're live.
Yes.
We are live on YouTube. Okay, right.
Yes.
So, okay. So now I started a coughing fit. So, okay. Hello, YouTube, and it will be on Facebook in a second. I'm just going to have to do it the other way around. So, welcome to the show. But before we start, let's start with 1 or 2 intros. You couldn't hear that, could you?
No.
No, right. That's why I suddenly thought, let's try this again. Now you will. So. And welcome to the Way of Conscious Mindfulness. So before we begin, I've actually got noise in my ears, but before we begin, who the heck am I and what's this show all about? Well, my name is Sifu Boggy. Sifu means guide, muse, somebody who points you to the way, who shows you your path. Boggy means the balance between the chaos and the calmness. And I'm just trying to work through 20 screens, trying to get myself back to. Oh, there we go. Now I can see myself. And my way, my Tao, my goal is to help healers, coaches, and light workers, especially, supercharge themselves and ensure that they never burn out using my Taoist skills, which is Tai Chi, Qigong, Chinese massage, reflexology, NLP, Theta, Tuina, and many other different techniques, because my teachers very much believed everything you learn enhances everything else you do. So what's this show all about? Well, this show is The Way of Conscious Mindfulness, which is a weekly and regular podcast show discussing spirituality and science, balancing it with health and well-being, with mind, body, and spirit, with a Taoist twist. What does the Tao mean? The Tao means the way, the path, the balance. Now, surprise, surprise, this isn't a normal show, especially in the UK on election day where everything goes haywire. Hence, I'm having to do it a totally different way to normal in a second, and we should be going live on Facebook now. Hello, Facebook. You're about to catch up. And our goal is to have an open discussion to help us all find new techniques, new ways, new skills to help us all find our very own personal way, path, or Tao. And there it is on Facebook. Awesome. So, hello and welcome to the show. And I would like to welcome back the wonderful, the awesome, the amazing Tash Mitch. Good afternoon, Tash. How are you doing?
I'm doing fabulously. Thank you. How are you?
Catching up.
Yeah,
It's
you've done really well. You've done really well on the technological front, I have to say.
and everybody thinks I'm a tech head, and trust me, I'm really not. But I'm just very good at adapting. I'm very good at
Nice.
sort of figuring things out, because we tried about 4 times to get it on Facebook. Wouldn't work on Facebook. Flipped it onto YouTube. It worked on YouTube. I thought I was going to have to go back to Be Live. I was that close to go back to Be Live. So that's where Zoom cuts us off for mentioning its rivals. But anyway, so okay, so you have been on the show in the past, but I'm going to ask that question again anyway. So our niche question is: so this is your show. This is the way of Tash, Mitch. So Tash, what is your way? What is your personal Tao?
My personal Tao is connection to divinity in consciousness, in awareness, and that is the core and the crux of everything for me. Creating a conscious connection to divinity. Now, divinity in and of itself is all that is, right? So there's an element of, first of all, understanding everything as being part of the all, including self, but also understanding that we are individualized elements of the all as well. So there's that dichotomy of containing the all within us, but also being a reflection or an expression of the all as well. And then from there, there's so many places that we can launch into, but it really helps to create a level of grounding. It helps to also create a level of expansion in consciousness and awareness. It allows for real seamless connections and relationships and interactions with the world and with people. So it starts first. I've gone all around the houses to come back to the simplicity of divinity is where it's at, basically.
Well, all is good. It doesn't matter how you get there, as long as you get there in the end. And I mean, I am actually probably next year slightly going to change the way I say stuff, but that divinity of balance, isn't it? It's that working it all out, finding the balance, and it's that balance, that harmony. So I mean, so where has that led you to? Where has I mean, like I say, the last show we talked more about what you did to lead up to now. So from now, where is that leading you to now? Because I know you're sort of changing things and things are going in a different way. So where's that leading you now?
So it's basically I'm plugging into the Institute of Energy Work, which is bringing together people who are versed in the language of energy and energy work, the language of flow and of divinity, bringing those voices together in the spirit of collaboration, and also creating space for people who are invested in, the art of light work and energy healing and vibrational work, to really come together and to share. So the platform that's a platform that I'm building, a space of collaboration and also a space for people to come together and to learn and to expand. The idea behind that is for people who are really invested in being on a path of mastery, whatever that mastery means to them. But a path of mastery for me is that sense of understanding that we are divine beings having a human experience. And what does that mean to expand our awareness so that we're able to experience more and more of the all within us? Because each human being starts off relatively contracted as a baby. It's like there might be a lot of awareness, but when you come onto planet Earth, you're not really, you're not really in full functional mode. So there's a developmental stage that comes into being, and that developmental stage really creates contraction so that we can function. That's one of the reasons, maybe reason's not the right word, but the whole sort of way that we're born as a baby and that sort of phase of growing into adulthood a lot of times that growing phase is about contracting, so we understand how the world works, we understand how things, you know, come together, and we understand what we like, we understand what feels good for us. So it tends to be a narrowing down so that, you know, we can actually function and get ourselves into some kind of groove. And that's what the world has really been leading us, the direction the world has been leading us into. When it comes to energy and energy work, you then start to realize that, oh, okay, so actually maybe that's not quite exactly what you know, what we want to be plugging into here. What we really want to be plugging into is how do we experience all that's available to us without judgment coming through us at all times, kind of thing, you know. And how do we build a relationship with that so we're able to function, but we're able to function in a high frequency way? And then that relationship builds into something where you're continuously opening and expanding and evolving and growing. And so when you're on that path, that definitely is a path of mastery for sure. It's the path where you're continuously plugged in to expansion, to tweaking, to discovery, to opening, to evolving, to moving, to expansion, to frequency, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, 100%. What I'm sort of like hovering over is the whole thing of there's this, well, you know, this is very interesting thing. So you know, in for one line of people I know, Emily Harrison, who's been on the show, and I actually teach Qigong and whatnot. She very much calls that, you know, tuning into the Akashic records and bringing that knowledge that way. In Taoism, it's being one with the Tao, it's tuning into the Tao. And the interesting thing, because I actually studying the Akashic records, learning the Akashic records, and the interesting thing for me is this, on the Taoist side, it is that it's like plugging into a universal plug socket first. You know, first it's about energy and vitality. Then you tune into, like, you know, information, data and information. But first it's about vitality, because we are physical beings. The first thing it affects is your chi, and chi is physical vitality, so it affects your chi. Then the next level, or then the energy that comes into that they are actually equal, but then the next energy that comes onto that is jing, which is emotional vitality. So your feelings, because, well, you know, your feelings actually affect your health. You know, as you look into lots of case studies that, you know, Bruce Lipton and whatnot, is that, you know, if you're overwhelmed by feelings, that will actually affect your physical health. And of course, if you know, whether you believe that that you only have one life, or this is one of billions of lives, each life is important. So if you don't look after your health and your mind, this will be a rather short one. So and then the next one is Shen, and Shen is spiritual vitality, which technically is the other two, but also it is that connection with the spirit. And it's the interesting thing, we were sort of talking about, we talked about tech and whatnot, and I've had a pre-show with somebody for February, and they were in hypnosis, studied hypnosis, and my teachers, and I've always seen hypnosis as spiritual programming. And technically, you know, any energy work is spiritual internet. It's the spiritual, that, you know, when people talk about spirit work or all the spirit, it's the internet. It's if you go by quantum physics, everything is energy, everything is conscious, and that's one of the biggest things that sort of mainstream doesn't want everybody should know, that quantum physics is saying that even atoms themselves have a form of consciousness. Everything is conscious. Your body is conscious. You know, when we say those sayings like, "Oh, my elbow's got a mind of its own." Yeah, it's conscious. That everything, you know, and in Eastern philosophy, they say that, you know, you have to connect with your heart. You have to connect, and even the Aboriginals and the ancient tribes, the American Indians, they would talk about this connecting, be connecting with the spirits. So everything is consciousness. So you're overwhelmed with so much data, so much information. No wonder we're freaking confused. So the whole idea is that, you have to learn how to filter it through. You have to learn and understand what actually is what you're receiving and what you're getting. And there's this interesting, I'll just say this one thing and then I'll shut up, I promise. There's this interesting thing of like modern day people talking about or the word like empath is thrown around, and people say, people are tuned into their emotions. I don't. My teachers have been teaching in industry, both military, the industrial complex and military, been teaching using empaths for over 50 years. They were using them for well before into the 40s onwards, using empaths to tune into, put in a business meeting, find out if somebody's lying or not, or they're deceiving. They were using remote viewers to find information, to find diamonds, golds, and this is all energy. This is all different energy. These are all different energy frequencies within your body. That your body, this is a biological computer. You can learn to program your biological computer to do anything. And we talk about that person's gifted, as in only that person can have. You're lucky to have that. Any skill can be obtained. Some you'll be better at than others, but any skill that can be obtained. But it's all technically energy. It's all technically frequency. If you understand frequency, you can start to understand the emotional realm, and you can understand the physical realm. But as any good Taoist should say, hey, what do I know? And back to you, Tash.
And that's the thing, isn't it? It's basically, so when I speak of divinity, there's a sense of tapping into the consciousness within the frequency, and the fact that there's a wisdom that's interweaved into the energy that we're speaking of here, that is deeply conscious, deeply knowing. And once we're able to connect with it from that place, it becomes one of the most amazing teachers. It also shows us how we are it and it is us, that kind of way. That basically everything that actually appears before us is a reflection of the internal. And by changing the conscious awareness and connection that we have energetically on the internal, we can actually have a massive effect on what goes on in our external experience as a result. That for me is the fine weaving of understanding with divinity. And it's one of those things where I don't feel like as a human being we're meant to understand divinity in its entirety, because we're speaking of something that's created billions of universes. But basically the idea is that we understand ourselves as a reflection of that divinity, and in that understanding we're able to interact from that level of consciousness, basically.
And yeah, indeed. And it's there is that concept is that everything comes from inside. It depends how far you want to take this, but if everything comes from the inside, then everything is created by you anyway. What confuses people, or people say about manifestation, why can't I manifest this or that or the other, is that, but if everybody is divinity, everybody is divine, everybody is that divine consciousness, that means everybody has their own what they want all at the same time, and everything's clashing with everything else. But there's
a seamless dance there, right?
And
yang. It's organizing itself all the time, so there's a seamless dance with it. But there's also the integrity of energy. So when exactly, right? So when you said, why doesn't everybody manifest everything that they want all the time, that frequency doesn't lie. Energy in its purest form and in its purest integrity cannot lie. Basically, it is or it isn't. It's this frequency or it's not that frequency. It's this expression or it's not that expression. And what we as human beings, and I had this conversation just before this call, what we as human beings tend to do is we tend to go out of different frequencies depending on what our integrity is. So for example, we would say, oh, I'd really love to manifest this thing. But when we check into our solar plexus, nothing in our solar plexus is connecting us to that thing. We don't think that there's any remotest possibility that we could possibly have that. So then we start to shift some of this debris out of the solar plexus, and we start to think, oh, you know, that person's got it. So, you know, why can't I have it? So yeah, I can have it. But there's still a lot of debris in the solar plexus and the energy field that's actually creating a disparity between us and that thing materializing in front of us. And that disparity, that sort of in and out of frequency, that I want it but I can't have it, I really want it but I can't have it, I want it but no, I don't deserve to have it, that sort of in and out mode, when it comes to an energetic level, that thing does not lie. So basically, whatever's in front of you is a replica of the energy and the frequency that you're emitting. So then there has to be something around how, which is where you come through here, right? With your qigong and all your methods, yeah. And how do we actually build tools that allows us to, number one, interact with the energy around us in a way that we then have a consciousness about what we're replicating on the external, and we also have a consciousness about what we're actually connecting to on the internal that's creating that replication. And then how do we shift things out of the way so that there's more clarity and integrity, and then the command and the projection is strong enough to actually materialize, you know?
Yeah, what she said. And the Taoists, because the Taoist point, or the ancient point of view, says that you are the most creator inside here. Mm-hmm. So your thoughts, your emotions are the things you can control the most. And then as it gets out there, if you can't control these, you won't be able to control the outside. And that's the whole thing. Because like you're saying, like, oh, you know, that thing of, oh, well, I can have it. Oh, I don't deserve it. Why don't you deserve it? I can have it, but I can't have it. Why? Why can't you have it? And until you can, you know, neutralize those internal issues, you won't get the external. And you know, like, and even to the point, you know, and it goes back to, like, for me, for quantum physics, when you go back to the fact that in the 1920s, when they first started doing atomic experiments, and it goes back that far, and the whole split, the what's the actual name? I always forget. The split experiment. So they were firing particles through this split. And there was supposedly 14 different scientists that had 14 different. We only hear about 2. We hear it was either going to be a wave or it was going to be a particle. But apparently there was 14 different scientists saying 14 totally opposite things. It's going to be this, this, and this. They all go off and do that experiment, and they all come back, all proving that they were right. And then go, well, how's that? But how can we all be right? That's improbable. So they swapped and all did each other's experiment. They all came back, proved that the experiment they had didn't work, but theirs was proven right. And I said, how does this work? And then they found out, and this is why in blind case studies, this goes back all the way back to that. So the reason in blind case studies and double blind case studies, which is basically where either where the subject, the guinea pig, and or even the tester doing the subject as well doesn't actually know what the test is, because the observer affects the experiment. Absolutely. So you know, your view and that, you know, learning that, and I say that, and people go, oh, no, you know, that's like the meaning to life is 42. You know, that is like the fundamental question. You know, the fundamental thing that the observer affects the experiment is like, that should be mind blowing. You should be, you know, running around going, oh my God, because it proves so much. Even to the fact when people talk about faith healing and somebody else says, oh, you have to believe in it for it to work, it's like, but you don't realize what you just said. And Bruce Lipton is saying is that that medical, but epigenetics is showing that you can heal yourself from life-threatening illnesses if you control your belief. If your belief and your emotions and your mood are in a certain frequency, you will be healed from those life-threatening. And people and they're dismissing it, but you don't really. That changes everything. That changes everything. Science says that's not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Mainstream science. And that changes everything. And yet we're still going, meh.
There's whenever you read, like, I don't know if it's in the Tao Te Ching, but it's certainly in the Bible, and it's in a lot of sort of sacred scriptures that have come through the ages. They harp on about commanding and the Lord commanded, and for a while I actually had this relationship with the word command, because I was a bit like, most people are scared of the word command because it sounds like little Hitlers, or it sounds like egotistical, or it sounds like you're taking over the show, that kind of thing. And particularly English people who are so polite, are very, very scared of like command, But then when I started to explore it even more, exactly what you're talking about, a level of projection that is so in integrity that it affects all of the energy around it as a result. And it commands anything of lesser projection to entrain to it. Ultimately, it's like, if you're not holding a strong projection, you're holding a pattern of entrainment. You're just basically asking, okay, what's around here that's stronger than me? Let me just, and your energy is doing it for you. You're not even, it's not even a conscious thing. You're standing there. If you're not in integrity and in command, and most people, on an every sort of, you walk into a room, you relax, you chilled out, you're not really thinking of anything. You're just like looking around and seeing who's doing what. What will happen is that the strongest energy in that room will then affect you, and it's not conscious, it's what energy does, right? And command is really when you walk into a room and you're in your own integrity, you're in your own awareness of what you're projecting and also what is being projected to you. You're in yourself and in your skin. You hold a level of command that whatever you're in integrity with, you have the potential of entraining those who aren't really aligned with their own integrity, right? Just basically by what you're being and the strength of what you're holding. And this is where command comes in, right? Because what keeps that in integrity, what keeps that alignment, what keeps that kind of, it's a projection that is so, it's strong, but it's also, it's aligned to a particular frequency, and it's holding that particular frequency in integrity. And that frequency could be, I'm confident. That frequency could be, I'm going to go in there and rock the room. That frequency could be, I'm going to go in there and just be positive and exude positivity. Likewise, that frequency could be, I'm going to go in there and I'm just going to mess everything up, that kind of thing. Or it could be, like basically I've got nothing, that kind of thing. Whatever it is, you might not be aware that that is a command. I've got nothing can be a command, depending on how strongly you're holding that frequency. So yeah, the relationship with the word command is developed in a whole different way as a result of being able to see energetic projection, and also being able to see how we can hold an integrity of a projection, basically.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And that reminds me, the whole, actually it goes goes into like the whole thing of like subtle control, or that command. It is, there's a thing with Darren Brown did this show on the mob mentality, and and there is this big thing, psychology on that. You know, the more people that come together, the more that they will be override by one frequency, one command. And you know, he took it took an audience, I think, of 200 people, very and trying to make sure there was mixed, but there's lots of intelligent people, independent people, lots of independent thinkers. Put them all together, and they create this game, sort of like this game show sort of thing, where they had this person. It was sort of like, I'll say this for English viewers, and then I'll explain it. It was sort of like Beatles about, is that basically, they told this game show, they told these people that there was this person that had no idea that his life had, there was all these cameras following him, and they were going to, it was sort of like a game show, and they were going to, they could do something nice to him or something not so nice, and he would have no control. It was all about what the audience thought, and they told this guy was a little bit of a player, he was a little bit of a ladies' man, he's cheated on his girlfriend a couple of times, and so they've already fed a certain narrative into it, and then they go for, shall we do something nice, shall we do something nasty, and they kept most of the time doing something nasty to do something nasty, until it ends up that he's had a really bad day, all these things have gone wrong, and then they always says, shall we now reward him and let him know it's all been a game show, or do you want us to pretend to abduct him and have him taken away in a van? And they, oh yeah, let's get him taken away in a van. So the van pulls up, and these people jump out to grab him, and he struggles, and he runs out into the main road, and the car hits him, and it appears to kill him. Now, what the audience doesn't know, this is all fake. Everything's been controlled because it's Darren Brown. Everything's been controlled for the one. But you suddenly see that audience go from this mob going, yeah, let's get him abducted, to, oh my God, what have we done? And everything's flipped. And the reason I bring it up is this whole, whatever is the overriding energy that controls everything else. And that's not just about society, but that's even your individual self. You could be the most positive person normally in the world, but if a niggle starts building up, or somebody suggests something, and that seed is allowed to grow, that can turn into negativity, or that can turn into, or reverse. You could be a very negative person, but we plant the seed in you, and we can turn it the other way. So this is, again, people should be running around now in the living room going, oh my God, because this is how, for me, this information, that's how important this, everything is about flow. It's about Tai Chi is when it's balanced, but yin or yang, yin, get right in a minute, because it's reversed. Yin or yang, is that if the yang is overriding, then everything else will follow. If the yin is overriding, everything else will follow. Who's controlling who? What's overriding? And if you don't like what's overriding, if you don't like, and that's one of my sort of things as such, is that if you don't like the feelings you're feeling, change them. But I can't. Yes, you can. There is no can't. You can change them. Because in your body, you are God or Goddess. You are the creator. Maybe not so much out there, but in here, you are the commander. You are the God or Goddess. You are, the boss. And that's, and that's the whole point. And even again, for the 37 years of doing different stuff, one of the things for about 10 years, my teachers got me to study theology. And it's like, what do you want me to learn about religion for? But okay. But it's so interesting of all the information that's in there, when you take it globally, when you take the information globally, they're all saying the same thing. Yeah. They're all talking about the same thing. And even to the point where, so religion comes from the Latin word religio, which means bond with a supreme being. But when you actually look at religions, they talk in Christianity, they talk about God God and the divine spark, that the divine spark is in everyone. The divine spark is the collective consciousness. We are that God is collective, and we are that collective consciousness. We are actually all one. We see God, as separate, but we are actually that. We are all, because if everything is energy, everything is energy.
And the full circle is to come back to really understanding that, because you can pay lip service to that without really fully living that. You know what I mean? Like, you can say, oh yeah, I really understand that, you know, if the divine spark is in everything, so it means that I am God, and but everything in our society has been set up so you don't really embody that too much, because you're very uncontrollable if you do. So like, literally the homecoming is really that coming home to, how do you live that? How do you live that as your reality, divinity within, you know? And it's a constant. It's It's like you were saying that, you know, the God is within everybody. So, you know, if you don't like what you're feeling, then change it. You have to be aware of what you're feeling first before you could do anything. Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes you've been feeling bad for a mighty long time until you realize you've been feeling bad. You know? So then there has to be a connection with your own, like an embodiment of your own consciousness, that you're aware of what energy is doing within you, you know?
Indeed. And actually, I'll throw one little more bomb in there as well. I had a friend who spoke Hebrew, and he would always go into one about. So when it says, in the Old Testament, it says, God created everything in man's image. And he obviously was a man, but he went mental on this every single time, because when you translate it from Hebrew, it says it's close, and Hebrew is a little bit like Chinese. You can get interpretations, but its actual interpretation is everything is in the image of God. Not man is created in God's image. Everything is in the image of God. So you, me, this bottle, the word, everything is, and then it goes into that question. Well, how can everything be in the image of God? And the image meaning, well, image, everything can't be God, but unless the image is actually its energy, its entirety, the image, the wholeness of it, everything is God. So everything is collective. Everything is collective consciousness. But again, it's like that thing of, we are in a society designed that, yes, you can say, oh yeah, all is one, all is collective consciousness. Then you get stubbed in the toe, or then you have to pay for your coffee, and everybody forgets it again. Yeah. And I think, and it's like, I don't know, maybe it's, and for me, this other thing of words, language is, and there was an interesting thing. See, I'm a bit of a follower of Edge of Wonder, who are these guys on YouTube, and they're a little bit like, they're sort of like, they call themselves citizen journalists, and they're a little bit like the X-Files, for those who remember the X-Files, or Fringe. If you're a bit more of a millennial, you might remember Fringe, and all the weird stuff, and they did one on English language, and the English language is that there's certain words, there's certain things that we say, that are very, when you actually look at them, the language to spell. Well, spell is also magic. To spell something, is also casting a spell, and there was others which I can't quite remember. But when we start looking at at the language, and somebody has a bad day, oh well, life's a dastard, or without swearing, life's a this, life's a that. Oh, that's life. Why is it life? Because you're saying that, and it's this, going back to that, almost that horde mentality, is that we have all these subliminal messages put out there, and we're all listening to them over and over again. And it's this whole thing of, for me, what you're doing, what I'm doing, is getting you to the divinity. The divine is being awake, is waking up. You're the whole point of this show is and some people always say, oh, your show name is an oxymoron, or your show name doesn't make sense. No, right. So science, quantum physics, says everything is conscious. That your atoms to a tree, to plastic, to a palm of edge, to a lump of poo. Everything is conscious. Everything has a conscious awareness. But is it mindful? That's why we say the way of conscious mindfulness is that being mindful is being in your divinity, is being aware of what's going on and starting to do something about it. You're not necessarily in full. Am I Dr. X? Am I lifting things up with my mind? Am I controlling the universe? No, but I stay cheerful most of the time, and I know how to make people laugh most of the time.
You might want to say, who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Well,
the universe somewhere in outer space.
Well. See, I found that really interesting. That in Mormon, in Mormon religion, is that when you actually study Mormon religion, they actually, and there's actually a couple that say it as well, but in a slightly different way. But in Mormon religion, when you go further up into divinity, they say eventually your purpose is to go beyond God, become your own God, and have your own universe, and that's in the Mormon faith. And the others, they talk about it in a similar way. They sort of, the idea of having your own reality, and in Taoism, they say your body is a universe. That you already control, you're already God, because your body is your universe. You control that universe. And the interesting thing, and so the free treasures. I mean, since communism has moved into China, things have changed. But originally there was free treasures in China, and the free treasures were Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism. Buddhism was very much about the emotional state. It's about understanding and learning about your emotional state to become Buddha, to become oneness, to become collective consciousness. Taoism was about understanding energy and understanding everything is interconnected and everything has a natural path, a natural flow. And when you understand this, you can start, instead of getting drowned by the wave, you can start. One of my Sufis would say, when you're in a boat and there's big waves, get your surfboard out. Go and flow, adapt. Now, Confucianism is the interesting one, because everybody thinks in the West, we say, Confucius, he was that really wise dude that said all these really wise sayings. Well, most of the sayings he said were either Buddhist or Taoist in the West. They're the ones they bring over. Confucian was actually about control, was that if people were too awake, they would never do what you wanted them to do. You could never control a society if they were too awake. So you kept their bellies full, but you kept their minds empty or low. You didn't give them the great lot of intelligence, but you kept them happy and content on basic things, and then they won't go and they won't go and do other stuff, or they won't cause. And it was actually Confucianism that talked about anarchy, about being uncontrollable, about chaos. In Taoism, they say chaos is a natural order. If a child or an animal is having its half mad half hour going crazy, if you just let it get on with it, they will knacker themselves out, and eventually they'll go back to calmness. And I've learned that in ice skating. We said ice skating had a party with no rules, and so the first half an hour everybody's going mental and doing all crazy stuff, but they still, they have self-awareness of they don't want to get hurt, so they don't kill each other, but after a while it calms down again. But teachers, like when I did this in an ice rink, the management were, oh my God, everything's going to fall apart, and then afterwards, because it didn't, they said, oh well, you're lucky. It could have, and it's like, but it didn't, because I knew it wasn't going to, because going by Taoist philosophy, and I don't know what you're talking about. And this is the thing. We're in a society that wants to control everything, because if you don't control it, there'll be anarchy. But anarchy never lasts. Anarchy, it'll be end of the world. Only if you say it will be, but it won't if you just allow things to happen. But hey, what do I know?
Yeah. I mean, there's a number of. I always see the system of control as having a lot of layers. It's a bit like I can't remember the movie, so I don't even know why I'm referencing it, but the actual point in the movie is like really poignant, where basically there was something that was going wrong in this particular company, and the middle management could only sort of sort it out to a certain degree, and then you had like the upper management, but they could only do so much. But the CEO came in and knew exactly what to do. So it's kind of like, okay, you do this, you do that, done. And this is a thing with the stratas of control, right? You've got like a lot of busy kind of like managers down below here, kind of like, just trying to corral everybody into some sort of form. Then you've got like another strata that is kind of like controlling the managers, and they feel, and then you've got the ones that are up here, and then you've got the 1%ers, let's say, who've actually worked out a little bit more of the way that the metaphysics of the world works, and the way that the energy and the vibration of the world works. And then that's a whole different ball game. So yeah, I get what you're saying about the control element, but it feels very layered, And then what happens when you try and unplug from the system of control, which is a very interesting exercise, because you start to realize how very interwebbed all of this is,
Oh yeah, well, people don't like you unplugging. Like there's that thing of I've known some sort of group of people that have come together, to live totally off the grid. And there's no harm, they're not a cult there, but as they're doing that, the people around, oh, they're a cult, oh, they're sacrificing goats and children, because we're so scared of what we don't understand, and is that it's like that was that whole thing of there's a psychology of the best prison in the world is a prison with no boundaries, but you put in these, what's accepted and what's not accepted, and people regulate themselves and become, it's a regulated prison that you don't want to leave, because you don't want to be, you'll be, oh, you're an outcast or this or that. And that's what a lot of societies are based upon, even some families are based upon, is that if you do this different, you will be outcasted. You will be, I've had it, I've actually had a couple of friends who said, why haven't you given up on what you're doing by now? It will never work, you'll never succeed. And stopped pretty much talking to me, and they were best mates. And it's, and it's that interesting thing of this, when you're going so much against the grain, there will be this reaction. And the thing, I think that's why people don't want to find their own divinity, because of this reaction. But if the more people that do it, the less reaction that will be, because that we're back to that leading that command. When the command is for this independent thought and this flowing divinity, when that pushes up above this level of fear and this level of need to be controlled, or things need to be in a certain way, then it'll be more accepted, or then it'll be allowed to happen. So it's this it's building, it's almost like you're and we're rebels, it's the whole rebel, like in Star Wars, because I love Star Wars. We're the rebels, and we're and it's that rebellion, but it's a rebellion of a different way, it's the evolution of revolution, it's that evolution in a positive way, rather than it being a negative thing. Does that make sense?
And as well, I mean, yeah, there's like a soul directive, in the sense of I can't do anything other than what I'm doing. I've actually, it feels like an impossibility for me. It feels like actually death itself would be more agreeable to me than doing something other than I'm supposed to be doing on a soul level. So from that point of view, is it really rebellion, or is it just like following the divine directive of why I came into this kind of spinning planet in the first place, you know? So there is that element for sure. There is that element of yeah, and this is what we call it, the Taoism, the way, the path. Like literally, when you're connected consciously to your Tao, it feels impossible to do anything else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, yeah, 100%. That's me. That has been, and but that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because to me there is no, when other, that is that point, and so like even whatever. So if other people sort of object and why are you doing that? It's, well, that's my Tao. Your Tao is whatever your Tao is. This this is mine, and that's where it's got to. And I mean, it's interesting, even to the point where one of my students, who's a teacher himself now, he always pick me up and saying, don't you, I'll be doing qigong. I'll be doing in the middle of a busy, of a busy train station, people walking past. I'm doing qigong. He says, are you scared? But you'll look like an idiot. It says, look at them. Most people don't even notice. They're too. All they see is past their own nose. They don't even see. And that becomes like magic. The fact you can disappear, is the fact that when they talk about, there's a thing about this, about people disappear. People somebody not seeing somebody else, and the truth is that you don't see them because you're not on the same frequency. Is that person's raised their frequency to a level where you actually disappear, and the reverse of that is that it was the American Indian tribes or American Indian shamans that were seeing the ships in the distance, and they would try to bring in the locals, and they didn't see them. And this has become a legend that they bought them, and it took them a couple of weeks to get them to see them over, until eventually the people saw the ships. And it was because their frequency, their psychology, if you want to put it that way, but their frequency was a line that it just didn't see, it just didn't register. And when things don't, and that's where this stuff looks like magic. If you heal yourself, and I know in China they can eradicate a tumor in about 8 minutes. In particular places where there's lots of energy, lots of frequency, and you do it in a certain way, you can eradicate. And people go, "Oh my God, that's magic!" And it's not magic. That's like saying these are magic. It's just it's a technology. It's a level, you need a level of understanding to get it. But it's just a free, it's just frequency.
And it's very much around what we've agreed to collectively, that is an unhealable disease, for example, or what we've agreed to on a collective level that is something that's really hard to shift, or something that's a massive, deep challenge that basically once you go there, you're probably not going to come back out of it, that kind of thing. I mean, it's an agreement that we've made on a collective level, and what we've been talking about previously is that we're all attuned to entrain collectively. So basically, once you go to the doctor, or whatever it is that you do, it doesn't have to be a doctor. Once you've gone to somebody who you think is credible enough to give you the information that you need, and they've actually imparted a piece of information that actually is not particularly in your favor, but because you put them on the pedestal, you're like, okay, well, you must have the information. Then you go away and you set your command into motion. You set your command, they command you, and then you command yourself. That's basically how that works. And I'm not saying it's easy, like what we've just said. It's not easy to unplug from the collective, but there is something that allows you, when you've got it could be one other person, which is what we call healers, right? You find yourself in front of somebody that has got a command of the healing vibration so powerfully within them, a command of the rightness of divinity, the alignment of divinity within themselves and so within you. You find yourself in front of that person, and all of a sudden you're finding yourself starting to attune and entrain.
Mm.
They don't even have to say anything out of the time.
No. I just want to add, and this is really, really important. This is what you're saying. I want to highlight 500 times and part because what's in the old paradigm, healers. Oh, I go to a healer to be healed. No, you go to a healer to pick up the frequency that you need. Then you actually do it. You don't. Yeah, a healer doesn't heal you. And this is one thing that really gets up my goat sometimes. Because like it's a bit of a doctor and drug shaman. Oh, you're a healer. No. I am a see-through that help you, points you to the way. You heal you. I help you. I remind you of the frequency that you need to do it to begin with. But I don't actually heal you. It's you that. And there was the same with these. It was Greg Braden. There's a guy called Greg Braden. If you look up tumor disappears in 5 minutes. Greg Braden's got this video, and there's these three. They're in white coats. They are actually medical doctors, but in China there's still places that do traditional medicine and modern medicine at the same time. Because if your arm's falling off, of course you want a blooming doctor. But once you've sewn your arm back on, then you can do other things. You can increase your healing and everything else. And like, so it looks like, oh, that woman has been healed by these three people, and it's the big, and even Greg doesn't totally say it, but the point is, it's the belief that you can heal yourself that actually activates it. And it's the fact that they are becoming a horde, or they're increasing they're increasing because they're all saying it can happen. You go, oh yeah, of course it can happen. Then it happens.
But that's the thing, right? Because basically, for a long time, I used to shy away from the word healer, because for exactly that reason, right? It's like, well, I don't heal anybody; they heal themselves, and this is true to a degree. But there is something about developing the frequency within you and understanding on a conscious level the frequency that you're holding. It does. You don't understand it fully in the sense of like, so those three doctors, for example, in China, who are holding the integrity of alignment so strongly for that person, and there's no doubt whatsoever in their projection that if they're holding that integrity, something has to shift. And then suddenly you're literally seeing it on the screen. The tumor is getting smaller and smaller and disappearing. But they're holding something there, right?
Well, what happens is you hear them say a word, and again, don't get caught up in the word thinking the word's the magic. The word they say wasa, and sa wasa, and wasa means already happened. It's already done.
Yes.
So it's the frequency of it.
Yes.
It's not the words.
Yes.
It's the feeling, and see in Dragon Dog Shaman, they talk about physical, emotional and spiritual. So you have to see it, you have to feel it, and then you have to do something about it. So even in manifesting, you can't. I can't sit here and go, oh, I wish I won the lottery tomorrow. Well, I can't win the lottery if I don't bloody do the ticket and pay for it. So there has to be an action, but there has to be a feeling behind it that, oh yes, of all this abundance and happiness and positivity, and then there has to be an intent as well. So it's all of them, but it's say wasa means, so you hear them saying wasa sa wasa 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 wasa, and they're just saying already happened. It's already happened. It's already happened.
In Kundalini Yoga, there's Satnam, for example. Satnam, truth is my name, truth is my identity. And the thing with Satnam is it's repeated over and over and over and over again throughout your day. When you're doing these most uncomfortable positions, like you're repeating Satnam, Satnam, so you don't allow anything else in your head at that point, because your mind at that point wants to go into, why are we doing this again? But with the Satnam, 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 you're like literally eradicating everything else but the truth and the identity of truth within you. So then once you've built that Satnam in your energy field and you've embodied it on a cellular level through so much Satnam, 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 you get to the point where your utterance of Satnam in an instant has the ability to shift energy and to align energy, because you and yourself, you've got a cellular memory of it so strongly. So when you're talking about these guys, which is why I was saying about the development of the healer energy, right? Because it's like there's something where they would have developed that wasa as a sound frequency and sound code and sound vibration so powerfully within them that just by repeating it and uttering it in that environment, they're literally changing the frequency of matter, and they're bringing something else into form. That you're talking about some repetitive development that went on for that to happen, right?
Yeah, and the whole point is you go all the things we talked about. You go back to the whole mentality. So you have 3 hardcore practitioners. You know, this is why, you know, the healer and the patient. The healer is the hardcore practitioner. That frequency is high, so you only got to start on that path, and it will pull you up. You'll pull you into that frequency. So one person, and she wants to, you know, she wants to be better. She wants the healing. She doesn't know how, but she wants it, and that wanting, and then they're knowing. So she's got the wanting, they got the knowing, and the knowing and the wanting become one, and that's this whole point of it, you know. And in essence, this is what we're doing is sort of, you know, it starts off with us knowing this path, and we get other people that want it but don't know how, and they draw in, and then they bring in their version and our version, and that comes together. Then you bring another one, and that comes together, and then you bring another one. So it's like reverse domino effect. So it's so they start, you know, coming in one after another, and they start building up. And that's where, so in the past, and we'll call it, we use astronomical terms because it works, the Piscean energy was very much the leader, and you have all these followers. And at least in the for us in the northern hemisphere, is actually, I found out just recently, it's actually for us it's the Aquarius, but it's not actually Aquarius in South Africa, in Australia. It's actually the opposite, which I didn't know, but it makes sense because it's because the northern hemisphere is one and the southern hemisphere is something else. But for the age of Aquarius, it's all about the unity. It's all about that collective consciousness.
What is it in Australia?
I can't remember. I have to find the person who told me.
That's interesting.
Because I thought, oh, it's globally, but no. Apparently, the southern hemisphere, it is almost polar opposite. So where it's Aquarius here, it's whatever's opposite to Aquarius. I don't know the star signs that well.
Interesting.
But, I found that. So did I. I found that. Oh, really? That's odd, because you always hear, you know, the age, you know. But so that was only the northern hemisphere. There's only one of the planet. So, but anyway, there's some homework for you. Go and
yeah.
Okay, cool. So it's right. So, is there anything else? We've sort of done an hour. So, is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we close up?
I would really love to talk about the Institute of Energy Work, and thank you, just for a minute or two, because
you could have spent the whole show talking about it. That would have been fine. It's your show. That's what I keep saying.
You. But the Institute of Energy Work, exactly what we've been talking about, the creation of a conscious collective. I feel like the creation of a conscious collective is something that we're doing more and more as humanity anyway. There's pockets of people that are coming together and actually creating really high potency spaces for things to happen. And this is essentially what the Institute of Energy Work, the whole reason for it coming into being is to create a collective of powerful energy workers, light workers, people who are catalysts for healers, people who are really plugged into shifting the energy of the planet and versed, because I feel like the planet itself, the energy in the planet itself is shifting, and as a result there's a lot of people who are experiencing that shift in their everyday life, and to a large extent it's registering for some people as highly uncomfortable, because what was, you know, their comfort blanket or their way of operating, which they felt they really knew quite well, is suddenly shifting and becoming something else, and they're having to, as you said, adapt, you know, to a whole different way of being. So what are the tools for the adaptation? But also, you know, basically just living on planet Earth right now, everything is speeding up massively. I think with the technology, you know, the technological age, and with the digital age as well, everything is speeding up massively. So as a result of that, there's a shortening of the space between thought and manifestation. It's quite interesting that, you know, the law of attraction came into being and was like really, you know, popular for quite a while. And what I'm actually seeing is that the law of attraction is happening on a shorter level. Like you think something and you have it, you know, and the younger generation coming up now are even more so in that zone of like thought, have. It's like no space, you know, like that. We're really moving into that. And so our ability to manifest from our thoughts is shortening massively. Then it becomes about, well, what are you manifesting? Because if you're not getting your mind into a place where you're understanding what you're pulling forward, then a lot of what's being manifesting is not what you actually want to manifest. So having a space to come to that is actually raising the vibration, and you're in a collective of raised vibration that is allowing you to really get into alignment with your soul directive, divine directive. That's what the Institute of Energy work is all about. So just to find us, it's www.ienergywork.com.
Okay,
www.ienergywork.com.
right. So what I'll do, guys, is I'll because I'm actually really like, well, it is on Facebook, but Facebook and YouTube don't get on, so it's not actually streaming it live. So you have to click on Facebook to go, click on YouTube to go on live. So I'm going to have to download it and stick it on Facebook. So what I'll do, if you've been listening, so then let me just quickly. So let me just put this www.ienergywork, yeah?
Yeah. .com.
And yes, I have it, and I'll stick it. I'll make sure that is put into being. I like that. I make sure that's put into the link for when it's downloaded. So yes, I mean, this has been a great show. Thank you so much. Loved it immensely. I'm now booking for February, so if you want February onwards, if you want to come on again, and we can talk about more about wherever you are at that point in time, because something tells me things are going to start moving. But
yes. Thank you so much. I have so much love and respect for you, even though I haven't actually touched you in physical form just yet.
And I keep blurring out of apparently I keep blurring out of free. Any moment I'm going to ascend, apparently, because I have got the Tibetan. That's the Tibetan rainbow ascension behind me. So maybe that's the whole point. Now, any minute I'm going to ascend.
I did tell you that you don't always understand the effect that you're having on the universe around you, Boggy.
I know.
You're powerful being over there, right?
Yeah,
the cameras can't quite cope.
Well, tech hasn't been able to ever since. Ever since I spent a bit of time with Yuri Geller, and he tried to get me to bend the spoon, and we were standing next to a computer. He bent the spoon, I blew the computer, and he turned to me and said, "Boggy, you're focusing on the wrong thing." And it's like, duh. Yeah, and the first, when we first started this show, it was on YouTube. And boy, the amount of problems we had. I'd disappear, and I've actually been a lot of the shows now. You'll see me do this, and whenever I'm doing that, I'm blasting energy at the computer to re-frequency it because it's about to it's trying to run away from me. It's trying to shut down, or the guest is going all funny. So yeah. So yes, I do manipulate things.
Yes. But it's an honor and a pleasure. Absolute honor and a pleasure.
Oh, snap. It's been great. It's funny. Obviously, this show was meant to be done this way because normally, this time of day we would have a few people, but I think there's one or two on, but I haven't actually had any comments or messages. But it's been a great show. Thank you so much, and we'll for everybody else, and for you, stay there just a bit, but everybody else, we'll end as we began with my very first intro. If it lets me find it. Oh, it's not going to let me find it. Move out of the way. Where is it? All right. I can't do that intro. Okay, so I'll do the other intro then. As that intro is not there, then I'll do this one. He says, no, that didn't work either. It's right. Okay, one more try. Otherwise, I'm just going to say goodbye. There's your intro. We'll do your intro. So here we go. So guys, take care. Until next time. Love, Chi and Shen from the wonderful Tash, from myself, Seafood Boogie, and from the Way of Conscious Mindfulness. Take care, guys. Bye for now. Love, Chi and Shen.